Hello friends, this is Pastor Coates, and I'm so excited today to bring you another Money Talk teaching on one of our 5-minute lessons in our series, 31 Reasons Why People Have Not Yet Fully Received the Harvest that They're Waiting on. Today we're up to reason number 14. Now this is a really big one. It's going to take me a little while to unpack it for you, so I want you to listen closely. Reason number 14 is that many people forget or they refuse to pay the vows that they made to God. This is a very heavy truth. Listen, many people either forget or they refuse to pay the vows that they've made to God. There's 3 or 4 important points. Here's number 1. Vows are not frivolous things to God. Here's what the Bible says in the book of Ecclesiastes chapter 5. When you vow a vow to God, do not delay paying it, for He has no pleasure in fools. Pay what you owe. It is better that you should not vow than that you should vow and not pay. Now that's really powerful. God describes people as promise keepers or promise breakers as fools. Now we love the concept of promise keepers. The great men's movement quite a number of years ago, people that keep their promises, God honors that. We keep our promises to our family, to our friends, to our bosses, to other people, especially to God. But God calls promise breakers fools. God humiliates fools. He moves away from fools. He uses fools as an illustration of destruction. So vows are not frivolous things to God. Secondly, it would be better to never vow a vow than to make it with no intention of keeping it. Now, maybe sometimes people make a vow and they forget. They had good intentions. They were sincere at the time they made their vow and they just forgot. If that's the case, we should always ask God to remind us of vows that we made. I remember one time I made a vow. I made a pledge, a faith promise pledge, to pay a certain amount as a seed to a missionary or an evangelist. And I forgot about that. But then one time in prayer, God reminded me, and the first thing I did was went and paid that vow because I wanted my faith and my obedience to be up to date with God. So if you make a vow, intend to keep it. And if you forget, then ask God to remind you. But don't make unwise vows. Because if you make an unwise vow, you're still obligated before God to fulfill it. Now listen to this statement. Even if you make an extravagant vow, an unwise vow, God will still reward you for keeping it. I want to give you an illustration. I could take a lot of time with this, but I'll do it quickly. This is the story in the Old Testament of Jephthah's vow. Maybe you remember this. Jephthah was a judge in Israel. He was facing a battle against the Ammonites, one of Israel's arch rivals. And he vowed a vow to God before going into battle. Judges chapter 11, verse 30. And Jephthah made a vow to the Lord, and he said, if you will give the Ammonites into my hand, then whatever comes out of the doors of my house to meet me when I return in peace from the Ammonites shall be the Lord's, and I will offer it up as a burnt offering. Now, I don't know exactly what Jephthah was expecting to come out of the house when he came home. Maybe his pet dog Fido, maybe a camel or a donkey or a sheep. But he goes out and he fights the battle, and God gives them glorious victory. But here's what verse 34 says. Then Jephthah came to his home at Mizpah, and behold, his daughter came out to meet him with tambourines, with dances. She was his only child. Besides her, he had neither son nor daughter. Now, as you can imagine, in horror, he tore his clothes. He was very troubled. He wept. He had vowed a vow to God, and he said, I cannot take back my vow. Now, this is controversial, but listen, I believe he kept that vow. But the way he kept that vow is maybe what some people don't agree with. You see, some actually think he sacrifice his daughter as a human sacrifice. And of course, there's no way that that could be true. There's no way that God would have ever accepted that kind of a human sacrifice. There's no way God would have honored him. There's no way God would have presented his story as a testimony of faithfulness. What he did was he sacrificed his daughter to a life of perpetual virginity. She would never marry, but she would live her life wholly committed to God. In fact, this is confirmed in verse 37, where it says, she said, but grant me this one request. Give me 2 months to roam the hills and weep with my friends because I will never marry. She didn't say, give me some time off since I'm going to die. She said, give me some time off before I then begin my life of celibacy as a virgin, wholly, perpetually committed to the Lord. Now, here's the point. Jephthah's vow was foolish. It was an unwise vow. God never asked him to make that vow, but since he made the vow, he was obligated before God to keep it, and God blessed him for his obedience. Now, I really believe that some people have never received the full harvest that they're waiting on from God because they've made vows that they've never kept. Either they forgot about them, or maybe they were foolish vows at the time they made them and they just thought, well, it doesn't really matter. God will overlook it. An unpaid vow is quite possibly the reason why many have never received the full harvest from their seed that they have sown with expectation. So I hope you're learning as you're tracking with me. I really want you to receive the full harvest from your seed and eliminate any of the reasons that may be there as to why you have not yet fully received the full harvest from the seed that you have sown in great faith.